I'm going to just jump into the panel because I think it is important that you hear from these folks that we have with us here. On our today's panel, we have Bob Jackson, president of Murray State University, and he is our convener. Come on up, Bob. He is our convener of presidents. I have to tell you what a joy it is to work with Bob. Bob and I, you know, we talk probably more than Bob wants to talk, I'm sure. But you know, our conversations are always about not only what's good for Murray State, but as convener, Bob, you always talk about what's good for higher ed. I appreciate you. Jay Morgan, president of Morehead State University, come on up. You know, Jay and I go way back. He and I are about the same age. No one laughed but Jay. I'm not sure what that says. Jay, I think. But Jay is at Morehead, as you all know, and Jay has done some good work there, and maybe not with the kind of funding you would like to have all the time, and we understand that, but I appreciate the work you're doing with our low-income students and all of our students at Morehead. Lori Gonzalez is the interim president at the University of Louisville. We had a chance to listen to Lori this morning. I've had a chance really, oh, there she is. I had a chance really when she came in as provost and now here lately to work with her, and her push toward equity and her push toward every single bit of making University of Louisville even more focused on student success is appreciated. Thank you, Lori. And we have Paul Czarapata, who's the president of the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. Paul. And you know, if you looked at the data, you see that we have a lot of certifications that focuses on our middle school jobs that's coming out of KCTCS. The one item I'm the most proud is the way they double down on their student success outcomes to see what they've done is amazing. And of course, KCTCS with 72 campuses, 16 colleges, are heavily the footprint in Kentucky. So we appreciate all of you. You know, thank you for being here today. I'm going to give you all a few seconds really to comment on anything you want to, and then I've got some questions for you. So for those of you who want to comment before I get started, here's your chance for a minute or two. I'll start with you, Bob, since you're the convener.
You did a very good job. You stayed on script. Those of you who know Dr. Thompson know occasionally he will get off script, but he did a very good job today, and he stayed on script. But Aaron, I appreciate your words, and we have an important agenda in front of us, and I know all of us here, and Murray State University in particular, look forward to carrying out this mission.
Well, not only does Aaron go off script, he normally goes long. So thank you for being short today.
See the respect I get, folks.
I'm telling you, when the presidents get behind closed doors, there's no holes barred as we go at each other. But we do have a collegial group of presidents that work well together, and hopefully for the betterment of higher education in Kentucky. And I'm going to hold Aaron to his comments earlier about helping us with funding.
Excuse me? I've got to turn it on? I didn't know I turned it off. Is that better? Yeah?
I'll just want to say that I appreciate the work of the CPE and the partnerships with the other presidents of the system. Kentucky can thrive when higher education in Kentucky thrives, and we can't do it with one university. We need all our universities working together. We need our community college system providing that pipeline of students that want to go on and get a four-year degree. That's the commitment we have at Louisville to work with our partners, and we appreciate all the work the CPE's done.
We may rib Aaron a little bit from time to time, but he was instrumental in uniting all of higher education during COVID. You know, I came in October of 2020 in the middle of it as an interim president, just a few challenges as we kind of rolled into that. And his help, particularly on the technical side of things, as we had to teach out in COVID where everything was shut down, was absolutely instrumental. I look forward to the discussion today.
Hopefully you can hear me now, right? President Jackson, I'm going to give you the first question here. We've talked a lot about FAFSA, and you've done a lot of research on this, as a matter of fact, and I'm anxious to hear what you got to say about it. But quickly, we know that research shows that if the on-to-college rate of recent high school students, graduates, don't increase, we are pushed toward a higher level of poverty and maybe even less dollars coming in on our tax base to help higher education. What are your thoughts on the FAFSA question?
Well, obviously, FAFSA is very important, so we all know what FAFSA is. Probably most everyone in here has either filled one out or helped someone fill out that particular form. 10 or 12 states now are requiring the completion of FAFSA. Kentucky does not. In the last legislative session, House Bill 126 would have caused the completion of FAFSA, as Dr. Thompson said earlier, where it would be an opt-out, not an opt-in, which I think all of us up here support. I support. I think all of us in this room, or majority in this room, would support, and I think probably all the college and university presidents. We left, I think Dr. Thompson touched on this, as a country, we left over $1 billion, a few billion dollars actually, $3.75 billion, I think at last count, on the table. But in Kentucky, we left $55 to $60 million on the table and growing. Students who fill out the FAFSA, Dr. Thompson, are twice as likely to go to college. And so we talk about how can we improve college-going rates. This is a simple, easy, low-fruit, doesn't cost much, and causes really little pain because the FAFSA is being redone. I think it's down to 36 questions, if I remember correctly. But it is an easy way to increase college-going rates. Louisiana is a good example. They require the FAFSA. And their college-going rates in Louisiana are several percentage points higher than in Kentucky. And so I think this is an opportunity for us. It was House Bill 126. It was a very simple one-page bill. And I think it's something that we should all get behind, the CPE, all the colleges and universities, and all of us that have some influence in the legislature and with the administration to push this particular issue. I think it would be good, for higher education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Thank you, Bob. And as mentioned earlier, we know that it will take some assistance if KIA is going to be a key part, because they do a lot of this work as well as many others. So I'm not saying this goes without the need for more assistance in making it happen, but my argument is an easy return on investment. Thank you, Bob. I agree with you. President Morgan, you know, your campus, obviously everybody knows you haven't received a lot of performance funding money. I thought I'd say that before you did, by the way. But, you know, it is important, though, that we mention that you still did a lot of innovative things on your campus, really, around the needs of employers and the students themselves. You did this pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. Would you talk a little bit about those?
Yes, I'd be glad to. Thank you. You know, one of the things that we did prior to the pandemic was focus on increasing our performance. And that performance was a 6 or 7% rise in retention rates. It was an emphasis on graduation and persistence rates. But I think during the pandemic over the past 2 years, many of us, including us, you know, experienced some stress during that time. Building out of that, one of the things that we've done, Dr. Thompson, is to make a special effort to meet more regularly with employers of the region. And that could be directly in our region or gently across the state. And one of the things that employers are telling us that they would like to see in students coming to them and where the deficits are one, they're saying that much like us, they're seeing this devoid of social and emotional skills, coping, mental health, and those things are beginning to bleed over from our institution and probably others into the workforce in a myriad of ways. So one of the things that we've done, and much to the credit of Dr. Lori Couch and Dr. Norman, our academic affairs unit leadership, is we have instituted in our first-year seminar and also with our academic advisors, a lot of training around identifying those, trying to make sure that students are identified on an early basis. We can get them to the help that they need a whole lot quicker. Employers are also telling us that during the pandemic that students are coming to them as employees and they don't have the work experience and the skills that they might have had they worked more during the pandemic. Some students chose not to work, some didn't have the opportunity to work. Internships were sometimes hobbled. Other clinicalships and practicums got hobbled at times as well. So through our quality enhancement plan, our QEP, we're really doubling down on internships and quality work experience for our students, hopefully a rejuvenation of practicums, clinicals, and others, trying to boost to the degree that we can some of those work-based experiences. So we're trying to let those be infused through our student body, primarily through our quality enhancement plan, and hopefully those will meet the needs of not only the employers in our region, but also the immediate needs of students on our campus right now.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. I want to give any of the presidents a chance to respond to any of these questions if you like. In a few minutes, audience, I'm going to open it up to you. So if you all feel like responding to any of it, just raise your hand. Is that good? Sure.
I just wanted to echo President Jackson's comments on the FAFSA. Right now, KCTCS doesn't charge an admissions application fee, and so very frequently high schools and high school teachers will take the time to walk their students through the admissions application process using our application. I don't see any reason why a similar activity could not be done with the FAFSA. I know there's been some resistance with it, but I really do. That's going to help. That would help push the needle.
Thank you, Paul. You know, many of our campuses, and I see Eli over there, I know UK and all the campuses really focus heavily on this attainment process, especially with those that are historically more disenfranchised. But President Gonzalez, I introduced you about the hard work you all are doing in this area. Could you share some examples of how your campus is advancing, student success for low income and underrepresented?
Thank you, Aaron. So one of the things we just started for this term was what we call the Cardinal Commitment, and that is a last dollar scholarship for students who are Pell eligible that come to us with a 3.25 GPA from high school and, importantly, have completed the FAFSA. So we echo and we served about 171 students with that particular program, so I hope we'll have more successes to report about that. We also are trying to emphasize our early warning system, our mid-semester checks. We were working to get assignments graded in the third week of school with as many faculty that would participate in that so that we could start our interventions. One of the other interventions we've started this fall is when we did our predictive analytics, we found a group of students that were at high risk. And so we are offering them an incentive to attend our academic support services. So what we find out is the students that are in the most need often don't know where to go or even if those services are there. Last year, our Academic Support Service Office, which we call REACH, served more students with a 3.0 and above than students with below a 3.0. So by getting the students in that need that work, we also are working, we have 2 mentored scholarships for our underrepresented students, and we're working to build more faculty mentorship into those programs. Those are just a few of the things we're trying to do. I keep saying that I want U of L to be able to tout our percentage of first generation, underrepresented, and underprepared students, but right now that's only an input for us. When it's a really good output, I'll ask to be back on another panel to talk about how great we're doing in that area, because we want to close those opportunity gaps.
Anyone else?
Sure. I'd like to talk just Friday night, I had the honor to go to the Family Scholar House Gala, just actually literally across the street. KCTCS has entered into a partnership with Family Scholar House for all 16 of our colleges. It has done amazing things. They've done call campaigns with all 16 of our colleges, and it's free of charge, which is amazing. We've just started installing kiosks that are literally, you walk up to it, dial up what type of service you might need, whether it's diapers, formula, help for daycare, stipends, and they'll reach out to you and provide it to you. It's really amazing.
And they're all free.
And they're all free.
The kiosk, I'm sorry, will target military, if you're a veteran, if you're first generation, and you can go and find the places to find food and all their resources are free. So that's great.
Jay and Bob, you want to comment on that? Okay. President Czarapata, as you all know, the demand for education and training for people who are in their early and mid-career is growing. Tell me how your campuses are working to increase the opportunities for these potential students and those that you currently have.
Sure. Probably our biggest initiatives are offering these courses where these students are at in life. And that's by having flexible courses that are either online, hybrid mixes, weekends, evenings. One of my favorites that's a program that's nearly full every time of the year is 24/7 welding at Ashland. And so that way, you know, our students are different in profile than a university student. Almost 35% of our students have got dependents. Over 40% are making less than $20,000 a year. We have to be flexible in our offerings. We come to the table with large economic development projects. So in Hardin County, the battery plant, we've got another electrification project in Bowling Green. We're able to step up and meet these needs because we've had successful programs and we've demonstrated that we can do it. You know, I look at our FAME programs, just look at Toyota, work and learn opportunities where a student is taking courses 2 days of the week but working 3 days of the week. We also offer off-roads and on-roads for our students, flexible learning opportunities. So we know that we can't compete alone on price. Those days are gone. Yes, we're the cheapest in Kentucky, but we're also the best quality. I put our faculty up against anybody, any day of the week. But thank you.
Anybody else like to respond?
I agree with Dr. Czarapata in regard to everything he said, but also there's an issue in regard to, as we all consider access and affordability, it's an issue that all of us have seen on our campuses, especially during the pandemic, is the financial issue of our students, the student financial need that exists today. That's part of the reason we're seeing numbers decline of college-going rates. If we can't get them there first, we're not going to accomplish all the other things that we need to accomplish. I mean, these are economic issues. These are economic issues for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. They're workforce development issues for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So, you know, some of the things that I think we need to look at in the future is more need-based aid. Yes, the Fafsa completion, the Pell Grant, is a piece of that component, but also in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the need-based aid issue, which we've seen multiply greatly in the last couple of years. So I think we're going to have to speak to that particular topic as well.
I'd like to add for access and affordability, a particular thank you to Dr. Czarapata and the 16 presidents from KCTCS on really working on transferability of credit. For the past couple of years, we were all busy dealing with our own campus issues related to the pandemic. Oftentimes we lost sight, sometimes, of keeping up with some of the things that we normally would. And he, along with some of his presidents, particularly in our end of the state, have been reinvigorating those conversations around transferability. We need to make sure we have wide entry, multiple exit here in Kentucky, and part of that is the seamless transfer of KCTCS to our four-year institution. So that, Dr. Thompson, goes along with access and affordability.
Thank you, sir.
Just to dovetail very quickly on that, KCTCS and Murray State and Morehead State have recently signed dual admissions agreements which provide that advising from both ends. And so they get advising from KCTCS as well as the university so that those students know that what courses they're taking are going to transfer on into the program that they want to do.
Oh, you want to say that? Good. Yeah, I have plenty other questions, but we got some time. I really think it's important that we hear from the audience a statement or a question to any of us. I tried to say, I got one last question I have to ask though before we leave here, but I want to let the audience ask first. We have someone over there. Do we have anybody going around with a microphone?
I can be pretty loud.
Okay, be pretty loud.
I've heard the last 2 or 3 years where we're talking about 2030 having 60% of our adult Kentuckians having a degree. And do we have where we need to be at each year, 2021, 22, 23, 24, 25? Do we have stepping stones, and if so, are we ahead or behind that schedule of making that goal?
Excellent question. I'm proud to say we only have 1 year of our COVID data. We'll see what the big year produces for us, but we're over 49% now. So we're on the trajectory, and actually we're above it. We're moving along those lines. COVID will have an effect. We just don't know how much yet, to be honest with you. If we look at the enrollment and the retention rates, which actually has taken the big dip in the first year of the COVID experience, if you want to call it that, it doesn't bode well for a good data outcome the next time out, and we know that, but we're trying to combat it. All of our campuses don't want to speak for you, but they're doubling down on those completion efforts with finances. Everybody's got a promise now, in other words, with short-term loans and so on. But I'm proud to say, to answer your question directly without going on to all the other stuff, we are on trajectory or ahead of trajectory, to be honest with you. And that's been just phenomenal to see what has happened. And not only with our attainment rate, but with our graduation rates and overall retention rates before this past year. So and with closing gaps at the same time, even though we got a long way to go on all of those. So yes, good question. Anybody want to respond more? Other question? Yes.
Yes, we will all agree probably that colleges and universities are microcosms of our society. And so giving the state of American, the status of American society, how have you all been able to balance pedagogy and academic freedom given the state of affairs in our global society?
Who would like to take that one first?
Well, good question and fair question. And our particular campus, probably much like my colleagues and others in the room, lots of vigorous debate on everything. And I think that was exacerbated over the past 2.5 years. I know it was exacerbated because I recall having a lot of conversations with my fellow presidents. To that point, one of the things that we've tried to relay to our campus is we want the campus to be a marketplace for people to talk about things, for people to explore things either of interest or knowledge-based, curricular, extracurricular, or sometimes off-campus topics. And as those get brought back around, all we ask is for it to be civil debate. And as a part of some of the things that we've done on our campus, there have been a number of symposiums, there have been a number of summits, to talk about various topics, both on and off campus, and I think our campus has done very well.
Our campus has done extremely well. Our faculty regent is in the back somewhere. I saw her earlier. I'm proud of our faculty and our staff and our students, and we have had those debates, like all of our other colleagues. And sometimes they're not easy, but we've done them well. We've done them in a civil manner. The last couple of years have been 2+ years, going on 3, have been difficult. But we've made a lot of progress in those respective areas. So I agree with Dr. Morgan, and I think all of our colleagues would agree. This is it's been a very unique period in our history, and I think this period of our history has made us better. And I never thought I would say that as we were post-pandemic, because in the early part of 2020, I think we were all tired. and tired and exhausted. And I'll correct Dr. Thompson on one thing he said earlier. He said we met once a week. There were weeks we met 2 and 3 times.
And yeah, every day sometimes.
And some days, some weeks every day.
At the University of Louisville, we sort of have the tradition of social justice. That's been a thread that's run through the university for a long time. And so that was really tested after the killing of Breonna Taylor. And what I saw on our campus was faculty, staff, and students coming together to look for ways to support racial justice and social justice. I believe that campuses ought to be having all kinds of debates. I believe we ought to be messing with ideas that are gnarly and difficult to come up with, because that's the place where ideas are born. I want a student who hasn't been challenged to think in one way to be challenged in a different way. And you know, sometimes we make people uncomfortable, because if we all stay in our comfort zone, the learning isn't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So, you know, I think that we put a lot of trust in our faculty to convey their disciplines in a really fair and just way. And then we have to build all those experiences around our students, like community engagement, working internships, that let them have experiences with people very different than themselves. That's the transformation part of higher education.
Very similar experiences. We're a bit different, though, in that we don't have residence halls. We don't have, you know, we're commuter colleges. And so our engagement is at the community level. It's that community engagement. It's working with partnerships. But it's also, you know, my hat's off to our faculty, because our faculty have had to take the brunt of this. You know, we have to be open to all sorts of ideas. But one thing that's given me hope, and it's horrible that it happened, was what happened to our colleges in Eastern Kentucky. These same folks that are on opposite ends of the spectrum sometimes in what they believe in, what they feel, everybody united together, and I know that that's what Kentuckians do. They work together, they unite together under a common cause, and I've got great hope.
You know, I'd be remiss, and I won't call on any university or college president here that wants to respond to that too, that's in the audience. But I say this clearly, you don't have a great college or university without a strong, well-paid, quality faculty. We talk about students a lot, surely that's what we do, no doubt, but you don't have that without that. The other thing I would say is many of these faculty are conservative, many are liberal. So civic debate should be welcome on any higher education campus, right? But civil is the key. And how we do that, I think, is truly, I admire any president, any provost, or anybody working on our campuses to moderate that, you know, and that's, we know easier said than done, but I'm proud of what we've been able to do in Kentucky, at least in those areas. Any other president want to respond to that? Seeing none. Other questions? Hey, Jason, how are you?
Good, Dr. Thompson. I guess this question is for you and the CP as well as the president. At EKU, I don't have the data, but anecdotally speaking, I've witnessed a decline, particularly in men, especially low-income and first-generation students. We serve predominantly a rural population. And I was at an institution before I come to EKU where they had the top Bell Center for the African-American male, where they recognized that in that population it was particularly difficult to recruit and retain students. And they made some progress there. And I would just be curious as to the experience that the different universities are having with regards to the loss of men on their college campuses, because I think in terms of the populations I tend to be around, we're kind of losing the argument that higher education matters, particularly in that community, and they sometimes speak a little louder about things that are, I would call them myths. They're just unfactual. And I'd be curious as to how are we going to address, or should we be addressing this issue? We've made progress with women in STEM and a lot of other areas, and we definitely want to keep doing that because there are certain fields that we need to do that. But I really worry about this downward trend, particularly among men, attending our colleges and universities and potentially KCTCS. So thank you for the time.
Hey, I appreciate that question. I'm going to let them answer microscopically more directly because it's where the rubber meets the road. I will tell you that our KY stats and our data at CPE allows us to disaggregate almost anything anymore. And so you can use your data in a way to kind of get to the heart of direction, right? So I wanted to say that. What I do know is that you're right. I'm from Eastern Kentucky, and I'm seeing it heavily there, but we're also seeing it all over the place. The other thing, I don't want to dilute your question because it's good and pure in what it is, and I'll ask them to answer that in that manner. I will just say, though, if you look at what happened during the pandemic, many women have left. I mean, they left the workforce and many left higher education. You know, the remote learning, their babies, and a variety of other things. I'm not saying men don't take care of babies, but let's get real, women do most of that work, good or bad. So that's another issue, and our data can help us go in that direction too. Anyway, I'll let you all answer the question.
So we have an initiative at U of L that's the Blackmail Initiative, and it's to bring young men together and help them find mentors to keep them in school. I'll tell you, I think the solution is not waiting until they get to school, to college. We have to start very early. We need to start as early as middle school so that we can encourage them to take the kind of curriculum that will help them get ready for college, particularly in the high school years. But I think that we have to, when you talk about disaggregated data, we have to look at every different strata of data that we have and find out where are we missing the ball. And I agree that we're missing it with young males and particularly black males. We just hired a vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion that came to us from Clemson. And he started a national incentive on black male. He holds a summit every year to engage young black men, young Hispanic men with others that can mentor, serve as sponsors, and get them going. And so we're going to try to import that program in Louisville.
It's a great question, and I'm very concerned about it. I'm a first-generation college student. I have 2 brothers who are. And 3 sisters who are. And in rural Kentucky, I think it's an issue. I think among low-income students, it's an issue. Black males, it's an issue. But it's not just a male-female issue, even though you're seeing the male numbers and they look much worse. It's about 65-35 on most of our campuses. 65 female, 35 male. I think there's a value proposition issue that Dr. Thompson mentioned earlier that we all talk about regularly, that we've got to do a better job marketing. I think we should ask our legislature and the governor's office in regard to some funding to market higher education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky to make sure that value proposition issue is sold correctly. Again, it's an economic issue and it's a workforce development issue. And it may not feel like it today or tomorrow or next month or next year even, but in 5 or 10 years, it's really going to show up. And it's going to be a major issue we're all going to struggle with.
Jason, that's a great question. At Morehead State University, our entering freshman class was 64% female, so we probably mirror some of the other institutions in the state. And that number has been rising about 1% or 2% each year for the past couple of years. I hope it turns around. If not, we're going to quickly eclipse 70% or more, which is very lopsided. Coupled with that, the workforce opportunities right now are pretty strong, and I think many of our male students either go from full-time to part-time so they could work, or they just stay out, either drop out, stop out, or just stay out completely in order to take advantage of those opportunities. That might turn some if we have a little bit of an economic slowdown, so that could possibly turn a little bit of that tide. But one of the things that we're doing at MSU is we're reviewing our scholarship grid, the other MSU.
I shouldn't have set you two guys next to each other.
One of the things that we're doing at the other MSU is reviewing our scholarship grid to make sure we don't have inequities in that grid. We don't know what the data is going to present right now, but as we look at that each fall semester, that's one of the target lenses that we're looking at this particular fall with this incoming class. So I might encourage others to do that if you're looking through your data as well.
I echo all the sentiments here. I'd like to double down, though, on what Lori was mentioning. We do need to get involved more at the middle school level. We have got to get to these students and their parents and their families and sell our value proposition at a young age. And our strategies, it really depends on where you are in the state. Some strategies work better with others, but what we have been doing, particularly lately, is we're going to be starting targeted marketing campaigns to students where they're at. We're also looking at reinvigorating some programs we've done in the past, which similar to what we called Super Sundays, which we did with local churches all over the state. And so it is a problem. To my knowledge, we represent, it's about the same split, 65-35 with us as well.
You know, I want to add just two other items. One is that if we get them, we should keep them. We lose men more often than women. That's why it's important that we have, mentoring in place. That's why it's important then in high school, number two, and in college, we create more internships, externships, apprenticeships, all of those. Those have a disproportionate positive effect on men to stay in school and to get them into school. So work-based learning in that regard increases the likelihood for all students, just more disproportionately increases for students of color and underrepresented, low income, and men. So I would say let's look at some of those programs too and how we can formally implement those, and you will have a greater output in that regard. Okay, folks, I have one last question. It's a double-barrel question. I'm asking you to do it fairly quickly. We're almost at time. In other words, two questions in one. Name me one big innovative item they don't know they're getting this question, by the way. One big innovative item you've employed on your campus in the last few years. And the second one is, if you could ask the legislature for any one thing other than funding, we know that, other than funding, what would that one item be? Do y'all need for me to repeat? No. One? Okay, you got it. Okay, who wants to start? Okay, Paul.
All right, well, I'll answer the last part first. I'd ask for two things. You said one, I'll ask for two. Mandatory FAFSA. The second one would be to allow the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship to be offered over the summer. Right now, it only goes, fall, spring, and then nothing. And so you get that melt. And so hopefully we can get that going. Our legislators are very receptive and open. I mentioned it earlier, we got really innovative with our programming. Who knew you'd ever teach welding online? It's hybrid, right? And so there are pieces that you can tease out and offer part of the classroom online and the rest of it hands-on, demonstrating your competency. So that's something I'm really proud of, and that's our faculty that, I'll never forget this, our former president, Jay Bach, said, Paul, is our LMS going to work tomorrow when everybody goes online? I said, I don't know, but we're going to find out.
Jay, did you want to?
I did, thank you. Two things I would ask the General Assembly and the Governor's office to consider. One is the FAFSA. We do, and I agree with all of my colleagues here, we do need an opt-out or almost a mandatory FAFSA completion in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We leave too much money on the table from a federal government perspective flowing into our state and assisting our students. But the second thing, Dr. Thompson, in a compliment to you and the whole higher ed enterprise, is the use and deployment of asset preservation dollars. All of our campuses were the recipient of asset preservation funding this year, and what a game changer that was in replacing air conditioners and water lines and things that people don't ever think about. Those are the things that needed work and have been really depleted from a budgetary perspective over the years and set off to the side. And these dollars, I think, would really be advantageous going forward if we could find renewal of those maybe this spring, and if they do open up the budget, or in the next budget session. You know, from an innovative standpoint, all of our campuses did tremendously innovative things over the prior couple of years, and I just simply want to thank our faculty and staff for what they did. Each of them in their own unique, whether it's curricular or extracurricular way, found very, very, very innovative ways to deliver instruction, to deliver advising, to recruit, and I just simply want to say thank you to them.
So I'm going to violate one of your conditions.
No one ever does that.
I know. So this wouldn't cost the General Assembly more money next year, but it would in the out years. And that is to allow some of the money that comes to our campuses through performance funding to go to base. You know, right now we need it for compensation. We need it to reward the people that are leading our universities. And while we're thrilled with the difference in money that we got this year, it was one-time money. So that's one thing I think I would ask them to do. I also think we ought to look at our performance funding model and have them think about what just-in-time learning means now. We have students that only want a credential coming right out of high school, and schools should be rewarded for being able to do that. So I did violate your rule.
Actually, that's a good violation.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
so let's do it.
The thing that I think I'm proud of at U of L right now is our Center for Engaged Learning, where we're bringing all the capacity of community-based learning and courses, service learning, undergraduate research, internships, co-ops, and practicums, all in one space, so we'll know, one, who is having those experiences, and two, who we are missing, so we can make sure we're doing a real push to get paid internships, because we want our Pell students who have to work to have the same experiences. So that's an innovation that we're proud of.
Thank you.
I'm going to violate the one response rule. Innovatively, access and affordability is very, very important to everyone on our campus. It's important to me personally. And every year for the last 4+ years, we've enhanced access and affordability, additional scholarships, additional need-based aid, et cetera, on our campus. And when we get in outside of that, during the pandemic, how our faculty responded, modality of teaching and learning, on and on, all that was very good. But access and affordability is vitally important. We have to get the students on our campuses. We have to get them engaged in teaching and learning. In regard to the legislature, I don't want to wear out Fafsa, but I will say it again. It is vitally important to this Commonwealth and what we're doing. Asset preservation dollars, Dr. Tharp, our board chair here has been talking about it for 5+ years. It is vitally important. We need to enhance those funds. And lastly, I think we have an opportunity to improve the performance funding model. Has been stated as well. We talk about that often, but I think we can make it even better, which will produce better results. Dr. Thompson, thank you.
Thank you all. Let me just say, and I know we're out of time, I just want to quickly say that by law, we have to come back in January to review the performance funding model, and that's exactly what we'll do. And each of the campuses have brought stuff to the table. CPE is bringing to the table. The legislature and the governor's office are bringing stuff to the table. I will also say that all of our campuses have instituted some promise level program looking at this, and I'm proud of that. Asset preservation, big game changer. We have over $7.1 billion of need. The General Assembly came, we asked for 10%, they gave it to us. Exactly at that. We need it now for many more years to do the things we need to do. Some campuses are in worse shape than others, but they gave us another almost $1 billion in new buildings, which we needed that too. So once again, thanking the General Assembly and the Governor's office. I want you all to thank this group of good leaders, our panelists here.